Good morning.
Well,
Looks like I set down my. Yep. Well, where did that go? All right. So I went ahead and wrote out my intro. Then I hid it from myself. So that's how this episode started. Anyway, good morning, good afternoon. There we go. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. It's great to be back with you. Hope you are doing well. By the way, I do write these out. Um, Usually the same for each episode, but I do it as an introduction to the show to give the show some consistency. I guess I'm calling this a show more of a podcast. It's more if I just do it when I have time. I should be consistent about it. But yeah, I do write these out and I go through this process, which I am not right now, so it's a little different than last time. But you listen to my previous episodes, I go through a rhythm to kind of get started and that gives me some momentum to go into the rest of the episode. So I hope you are doing well. I am your host today. You can watch and listen to me on YouTube, Rumble, and X. Yes, this is not live. This is pre-recorded, and I will post this at some point later this week. And please like, share, and subscribe because it does feed the AI algorithm. I really would appreciate the support. If you subscribe to this video, it does help me in the YouTube algorithm. It also helps me in the Rumble algorithm, although I really haven't figured out Rumble yet. When I'm on there, I feel like it's just more of a political episode a political platform than anything else. And finally, of course, last but not least, please post your comments and questions below. It'd be great to hear from you, especially with an episode like this, where we're going to be getting into, I'm going to be talking about my road from being a vet or being active duty to becoming an engineer in industry. And it would be wonderful to hear from you on this topic. If you're a veteran or if you're active duty and you come across this episode on YouTube, it'd be great to hear your thoughts, your current state. By the way, this will apply to anyone in the military. So you don't have to be, for example, a nuke in the Navy because, well, this is not a secret. I was Navy. Talked about this in the past. Navy corpsman. Served with the Marines, Airborne Marines. Raw. Semper Fi. Though that was pretty much. I joined the Navy and I spent the entire time with the Marine Corps. That's pretty funny, actually. Some people do that. I was not a Marine, although my first sergeant says I was a Marine. And I'm not going to argue with my first sergeant over that. And because whatever the first sergeant says goes, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, post your comments and questions below. It'd be great to hear from you. By the way, this is originally why I started this channel. Originally was supposed to act as kind of, not kind of. I should extract that, evict that from my vocabulary. If you say kind of before something, you should get rid of that. Just throw that out. Reason why I started this channel in the beginning was to act as a guide, as an advisor for people who may have not started off in tech or engineering in the beginning and were curious about how to get into it, take the nesty plunge, so to speak. And got into reading articles, which I will still do. I will still do read articles. I think it's good to keep up with what's going on in the market. But yeah, I kind of got away from that, and I want to get back towards that because I think that adds value. And it's not a lot of people, probably not a lot of vets or engineers doing this. In fact, I don't know any engineers who do this. It's not really an engineer thing to do. We tend not to be the life of the party, but I didn't get into, and I'll get into this. I didn't go to grade school, high school, and straight to college. That was not my path. So engineering wasn't something that was even on my radar. Even when I went to college the first time, it was not on my radar at all. But anyway, let's jump into it. Let's jump into the prompt here, because this episode right here was inspired by a buddy of mine on X, and Dom Schroeder, very much into a Brazilian jiu-jitsu, BJJ, as he says, he puts jiu-jitsu in his profile there over in the right. Anyway, here's the question. Here's the prompt. If Dom says, by the way, you should follow Dom. Dom, if you're on X, follow Dom. I'm sure Dom will, in this YouTube video, will make a comment below at some point. But here Dom says, if you're a veteran in tech, how would you do it starting from scratch? Well, I'm assuming if you're not in, if you're just starting off, let's rephrase the question. If you're just starting off and you're just getting out of the military, how would you get into tech? And he continues here, companies I need to research, vets in tech, vets in code. I would also add vets in engineering. It all depends on what you want to do. Where do you want to end up? But that's a difficult question to answer if you don't know. And like we always say in engineering, you don't know what you don't know, especially in test engineering. You don't know what you don't know. And you could do all of the designing and planning, and something could pop up. I call them side quests. I've noticed people have started using that term. I'd like to think I was the one who started it. Maybe somebody else started it before me, which is interesting because we're dealing with the same stuff at work. Anyway, I'm kind of moving on. I'm getting away from the topic. Let's see here. I'm going to grab some coffee. Anyway, Dom continues. If anyone has anything intel to drop, drop it in the comments. Right, so this is an interesting question. Dom is certainly not the only vet. Well, Dom is just getting out. He's done 21 years, as he puts in his profile. So he's just, if you know him, he's just getting out of the military. And so he's looking for a new path in life, and he's interested in tech. So there's different pathways you could take. And by the way, tech is one of those things where you can get into it early in life, or you can get into it, somewhere in the middle of your life, or that's kind of what I did, or you can get into it later in life. I know in grad school, there were a couple people in their 60s. So they were transitioning from having completely different careers and moving into engineering and tech, which is interesting. And by the way, that works because for most tech jobs, you're going to be behind a desk. When we think of tech, we think of computers, software mostly. And that means you're either going to be, you can work from the office or you can work from home. If you work from home, you're not going to be climbing on machines. You're not going to be interacting with machines. That's what I do. My job is more active. And I always have a computer with me. But some of the time I'm around machines. Especially the last few weeks. It goes in waves. Depends on the needs at the moment of the project. And currently I'm on 2 different projects. So I'm working across projects. And what project would be equivalent to a machine, type of machine that we're building. And but I didn't know when I first got in, or when I first started this path, I didn't know that that's what I would be doing. And so in general, people would think, well, you're going to be sitting behind a desk. And that's what I thought I was going to be doing. I thought I was going to be sitting behind a desk the entire time, but that's not what happened. Because my job exists at the intersection of hardware and software. And so I have to know both, or I'm going to have to learn both. Right. But I didn't know that in the beginning. When I first started off, like I said, I was a corpsman, and that was, that's a health job. That's a medical support job, and there's not absolutely nothing wrong with it because corpsmen are badasses, especially on the green side. Not just saying that not just saying that we are. The Marine Corps, the Commandant of the Marine Corps would agree with that. So I'm not just saying that. The Commandant of the Marine Corps would agree with that. I'm sure the Navy would agree with that as well. I'm pretty sure. So anyway, I started off there. So a little closer, adjacent to engineering. Health is more science oriented. And so a lot of people thought I was going to go into nursing or maybe pursue being a doctor or something like that. That does happen. There are corpsmen that will go back to school to get their degrees, to go to med school. So I saw that. It wasn't super common, but I saw it every once in a while. Matter of fact, there is a guy. Oh, what's his name? There was a Navy corpsman who was on the SEAL team with Jocko Willink. And let's see if I can find his name. I'm doing this in real time. As you know, when I record these, I just do these in one shot. I don't re-record or clip or anything like that, or I don't do that. I just do it, so you get all the raw stuff, even if it's messy. So where's Johnny Kim? That's right, Johnny Kim. So let me I'm gonna come back to this, Dom. I'll come back to you in a second. This is actually a good this is a worthwhile little detour. So Johnny Kim. Johnny Kim was a Navy corpsman. He went to BUD/S, became a Navy SEAL, and he was task unit bruiser. If you read the book Extreme Ownership, Jocko Willink, he gets into bruiser because he was a lieutenant commander on bruiser, and that's where the whole point of Extreme Ownership comes from. Anyway, Johnny was on that team, and Johnny was a Navy corpsman. And after Johnny got out, he went and got his degree, or maybe while he was still in, he got his degree. Anyway, he got his degree in mathematics. Then he went to medical school, became a doctor. Interesting pathway. Not similar to mine, actually. My undergrad was in mathematics and systems, and I went to grad school for engineering and artificial intelligence. And kind of a mix for me is software engineering, electrical engineering. I've learned hydraulics in industry, and so I have a bit of a mix myself. But anyway, now he's an astronaut. And so clearly, Johnny, myself, there's other corpsmen that I know of. There's lots of people who are not Navy corpsmen who move on from a, let's say not, let's say you're a nuke on the ship. That's what we call it in the Navy. So it'd be like a nuclear energy engineer. You're not coming from that job. You're coming from a job that, let's say, less STEM. I don't know if you could call a Navy corpsman job as being STEM or not, but you're moving away and you're moving into something else, right? You're moving towards what would be more identifiable as tech, engineering. And so it's definitely possible. And there are lots of examples out there for this. Not just mine, not just Johnny's. There are others. But let's go back to Dom's question here. Let's go back. So using myself, using Johnny, how did we do it starting from scratch? Well, I had always had this. I wasn't very good in grade school. Let's say I didn't get good grades in math and science in grade school or in high school. It was very much in the Star Trek. Love Star Trek. I love Star Wars too. I like all the sci-fi stuff. Um, but it never dawned on me that that would be a career for me, or that would be something that I would do. And so when I went back to school, I actually didn't go back to school right away for math. I went back to school for anthropology. By the way, if I go through this entire story, somebody might hear it, actually know who I am. And then I'm outed. Whatever. At this point, I actually don't care anymore. I don't really say anything too controversial in my videos. But anyway, I started off in not a STEM field. I really didn't know which direction I was going in. Excuse me. Or what I wanted to do for a career. I didn't think about, hey, I could make a lot of money from this. By the way, if you become an engineer, you make a good salary. If you work a lot, you make a good salary. You don't spend any money. That's where I'm at right now. I don't really spend a lot of money. Anyway, because those are the types of things you should think about when you're thinking about a degree. You should think about a return on investment, because you're going to spend a lot of money. You could get those grants right away, but eventually you might get into loans, or you should pay for your school as you are going through. You should do that. That's a smart way to do it. Anyway, I didn't know where I was going with it. I had people telling me where I should go, and to be fair, just to be honest, my advisors, I liked my advisor at my first school, but he wasn't pushing. He was asking questions like, well, what are you interested in? What is your aptitude? I didn't know I had an aptitude for mathematics. I didn't know I had an aptitude for electrical engineering. I didn't know any of this. I came from a family of men who clearly had an aptitude for math and engineering, but that's not what they did for a living. They had jobs that were adjacent to it, but they didn't go to school for it. They didn't succeed in an academic environment. And so there wasn't a lot of probing by my college advisor. There wasn't a lot of, comparing and contrasting different routes in life, or, different routes for your different potential careers. There wasn't a lot of that. As a matter of fact, we didn't have those conversations at all. The conversations were completely away from that. So I ended up in a field that is arguably not STEM. That I would argue it's not STEM. I mean, it's fascinating, but it's not STEM. I did that for a couple of years. I took a math course. It was just a intermediate algebra course at a community college. When I went back to school, because of how poorly I did in high school, how poorly I did in math in high school, and how long I had been out, I had to start off in beginning algebra, and then I had to work my way. Just put it this way: I started off in beginning algebra, and by the time I got to my junior year at the university, I was studying chaos theory, just to kind of give you an idea of how far I'd come. Probability theory, stuff like that. Again, I was studying math and systems, so it was more applied mathematics, although I was exposed to theoretical mathematics as well. And so I took this intermediate algebra course, and about halfway through, I am basically helping the other students with their math. And I remember this professor, she told me at the community college, she said, Doc, you're an idiot if you don't pursue a career in mathematics, or pursue a career in something that's mathematically basically that's related to mathematics. And I never forgot that. And a lot of people could get offended. By the way, this is where not getting offended really benefits a person. I can get offended by it. It was the truth. She was correct. I was an idiot if I didn't do that. Because she clearly believed that I had the aptitude to do it. Now, the discipline to do it, that's different. Because studying mathematics takes a lot of discipline. Studying software engineering, computer science, studying mechanical engineering, aerospace engineering takes a lot of discipline. You could be smart, and there are a lot of people who take it that are really smart. There are people who are gifted that take it that are smart, and they don't think about the discipline. But if you're coming into it and you didn't come out of high school and your high school didn't have those courses, my school didn't have calculus and stuff like that. I didn't even know what calculus was when I graduated from high school. Never heard of it. So again, you don't know what you don't know until you're exposed to it. I never even had a shot at any engineering related job in the Navy. I never had a shot because I wasn't exposed to any of those things. Now, you could say, well, you should have gone out and you should have studied and taught yourself that stuff, or you should have pursued. Yeah, but I didn't know. Jeff Bezos, if you read the book, the Everything Store, it's about Jeff Bezos and Amazon. Jeff Bezos' father, real father, was not an engineer. The guy was an artist and a surfer. His stepfather was an engineer, and his grandfather was an engineer. That's where he was exposed to engineering. He was exposed. He knew them. And so that was his father was not advantageous in that area. It doesn't mean his father, well, you have to read the book. Their relationship was rocky, so to speak. But as far as passing down knowledge, he was exposed to those ideas through his stepfather and his grandfather. Just like you're listening now. Now you're exposed to the ideas. Anyway, that's when I changed things up, was when she told me I was an idiot. And I didn't write yet, but I did soon after that. I changed things up. I changed my major. When you change your major from a social science to a STEM field, you have to take a lot of math courses. And that's what I started doing. I started taking a lot of math courses to get myself caught up. And then I transferred to the university and was exposed to a wider breadth of topics, ranging from game theory to aerospace engineering. And that's when I really got into applied math and how I could use mathematics in different disciplines and study systems through the tools of mathematics. And so it was really interesting and really fascinating, but it wasn't quite engineering. And by the way, it was something that is adjacent to engineering. It uses a lot of the same ideas. Of course, engineers use mathematics, or at least they should. I know a lot of engineers that try to avoid mathematics. If you're hearing that for the first time, well, you're hearing that for the first time. That is true. So anyway, I found out that recruiters do not understand. The magic word for recruiters is engineering. And so after I was done my undergrad, I went to grad school and I pursued engineering. Partially because I wanted to go to grad school and I could go to grad school to pursue higher learning. And by the way, grad school is far superior to undergrad. it's, it's not even close. It's just not close. It's far superior to that. They really do treat you like an adult in grad school versus undergrad. Undergrad, they baby you. In grad school, you're an adult. You're on your own. It's a lot of fun, and it's more specific and specialized, but yet you have a lot more room to kind of determine your path, so to speak. And so anyway, I did that and got my first job in industry, and it went from there. And so my path was not direct per se. It was, it was non-traditional. That's what they called it at the university. It was non-traditional, which it was. And it was a lot of trying to figure things out for myself. I didn't get any help from my advisors. I never got help from well, it's not that my advisors weren't good people or they weren't nice. They were always nice, but they were never helpful. Until you get into engineering. When you're in engineering, they just say you need to take these sets of courses. And it just happens to be the right thing to do. It's the smart thing to do. Take these sets of courses. And I've benefited from that greatly in my career. And so that was my distilled pathway from being a corpsman with the Marines to being an engineer in industry. And now I work a lot of hours in industry. I've worked a lot of hours in the last couple months because I've had to catch things up at work for somebody else. But that's not the only pathway. There are different pathways. Like Dom's asking, there are, vets in tech, vets in code. Code and tech tend to be used synonymous. So you can get into tech and not have degrees. That's very common. Those are software related jobs. It's much more difficult to get a job if it's going to involve hardware. The job I have, you have to have a degree. You just know you have to. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Unless you work at a company and you meet somebody and you happen to maneuver your way in. That's one way to do it, but that takes years. It's going to take years either way. So my job, they would never give that to somebody who doesn't have a degree. They would never even think about it. So there are some doors. And by the way, somebody could say, well, that's not fair. No, it's not fair. Absolutely, it's not fair. But it's the correct decision. And we could get into that. I'm not going to get into that today. Why that's the correct decision. But there are a lot of jobs, like I said before, there are a lot of jobs in the industry that are you don't need a degree. So you're in the military right now, and you're trying to get out, or you're getting out, and you're moving to you want to get a job as a programmer. That is doable. That's very doable. It could be front end, do a JavaScript, CSS, HTML. It could be back end stuff where you teach yourself about databases, and like to say PHP if you're going the classical route of web development. You can do that. That's definitely doable. There are a lot of other jobs in industry where you could do the same thing using different technologies. Ruby on Rails, stuff like that. Again, it's a bit more difficult to get those types of jobs the closer you get to the hardware. Then it becomes a bit more difficult. Not impossible, but very, very difficult. One way that would help you get to uh, uh, get uh, get you towards a job that is non-degreed would be certifications. That's certainly possible, and you there's different certifications through different organizations. Microsoft has certifications. Amazon has certifications. Amazon has certifications for AWS. So you could get involved in just taking certifications for AWS and get yourself a pretty good paying job at Amazon. By the way, Amazon's a good company. I used to work for Amazon. It's a very good company. A lot of people don't like it. They don't think Amazon's fair. Amazon's a great company. I have nothing bad to say about Amazon. Uh, there's also an opportunity to get there through, let's say, an associates. You could also get into industry with an associates. By the way, software, there are different colleges, community colleges provide associates in software development, web development. So that's another way you could get into. A lot of this has to do with credentialism. That's the culture we live in, credentialism. It's good to be able to teach yourself. And by the way, you're going to do a lot of teaching yourself as an undergrad or in grad school, more so in grad school. But that's the system. That's the system you exist in. And if you're former military, with military is credentialed as well. Be a Navy corpsman. I go to hospital corps school, field medical service school, and then beyond that, yeah, I come tell you, oh, I'm airborne. Oh, so you went to airborne school in Fort Benning, right? No, I didn't. I'm airborne. Wait, you didn't go to you didn't go to airborne school and you're airborne? It's a credential. It's a school, gives you a credential. Here, you did this. You successfully completed this course. Here's your credential. Boot camp is a credential. You successfully graduated from boot camp. Here's your credential. You went to your A school, whatever that is. Navy, Army, Air Force, Marine Corps. You successfully completed it. Here's your credential. So in industry, they're always looking for credentials. If you have a bachelor's degree, that's more credential than an associate's. If you have a master's degree, that's more credential than a bachelor's. If you have a PhD, that here you go. Again, it's credentials. And so that's the system we live in. And so then you have to figure out, like, where do you want to go? Where do you want to end up in tech? What type of job do you want to have? What interests you? And then you have to move backwards, work backwards and figure out what are the credentials I need for that. What's your credential? Oh, I took an Udemy course for a month. Can you hire me as a senior software engineer? No. Although I would argue for veterans, and this is a whole nother video in itself, that as far as leadership is concerned and years of experience and like in different areas that are related to or associated with tech, if you are a company, and this is to the companies, if you're a company and you're not moving your veterans into senior roles, you are dumb. Because the United States military has spent a lot of money on developing leaders. They've spent a lot of money and a lot of time. And the United States military is second to none in leadership. It's second to none. I've been in both. I've been in engineering industry and I've been in the military. Military is superior. It is superior in leadership. I mean, it's not even close. It's not. It's not even close, man. It's not close. Engineers that come out of university are not taught leadership. It's clear. I mean, it's super clear. Unless you went through, unless you graduated from ROTC, you were in the officers candidate program in the university, and so that was a part of your curriculum. And then let's say you graduate with a degree in mechanical engineering, and you get, let's say you're Air Force, and you get commissioned to a second lieutenant. Yes, yes, that would be an example of somebody who works in industry and is good at leadership, or at least has had the training for leadership. But that person is still an officer. Let's say they're reserves. They still went through the process. It's still military. Anyways, that was a bit of an aside. But back to my original point but credentials. So the idea here is figure out where you want to get to and then work backwards on how you're going to get to that. What are the credentials you're going to need? So like if you want to work with if you want to work with, let's say, software infrastructure, you want to get your certifications. And let's say you don't want to spend the money to go to school, to the university, get a degree in like software engineering or computer science or mathematics. A lot of people don't understand that mathematics, you can learn how to program through. If you know mathematics, it's a lot easier for you to learn how to program. I don't think people understand that. Anyway, you want to work in AWS, but you don't want to go to school. And so what you do is you figure out, well, what are the types of jobs in AWS, and what are they, in software infrastructure, and what are they looking for? What type of credentials are they looking for? With AWS certifications, and you will spend some money on AWS certifications, like exams and stuff like that. But you have to figure out, like, what are they looking for? You go and look and see, are there jobs where they're not looking for a degree in software engineering or computer science? They're looking for AWS certifications, maybe as a compromise or as a supplement. You figure that out. If you're going to work as a design engineer, developing hydraulic circuits for a machine, you're probably going to need to go get a degree in mechanical engineering or aerospace engineering or something like that. You can get a certification in that, power engineering, related to hydraulic circuits. But I can tell you right now, the certification process, they want you to at least have a bachelor's degree, a STEM field bachelor's degree, like mechanical engineering, aerospace engineering. You can get a certification still if you have a degree, an advanced degree in, let's say, electrical engineering, and you've worked in industry for so many years. Then you can still get that certification if you're working with hydraulics. So it's not the end of the world. You don't necessarily need, but it's a lot easier to get that, because that's the domain for hydraulics. The domain for software infrastructure is different. It's a different set of requirements, what they want, what they're requiring from you. The GPS, if you want to develop firmware for GPS systems or something like that, that is a different set of requirements. So when you're looking at the job descriptions and you're trying to figure this out, like, okay, well, I'm interested in this area. What will it take to get there? What will it take to get there? And ignore the years of experience. Just look at the credentials. Everyone is so opposed to credentials from what I'm hearing. Things shouldn't be credentialed. Well, it should not. That provides the person looking at your resume, that provides some insight into what have you been exposed to. I deal with this all the time at work. A part of my education and part of my industry experience is data analysis. And it helps that I have a background in mathematics. And it's the one thing generally is ignored, is data analysis, and it's so important. And it's a credential that has to do with the engineering job I'm currently doing right now. It is one of the knowledge areas that is required for all of the job descriptions I've looked at other companies. One of it's Part of it is data analysis. Can you do data analysis? Another one is circuit analysis. Are you capable of doing a circuit analysis? Another one is, are you capable of designing experiments, tests, things like that? And of course, because they want everything, are you capable of programming and stuff like that? So as you get into more and more sophisticated jobs, you're going to have more domains of knowledge. It doesn't mean you have to know everything. You don't have to be perfect, because believe me, the more you learn, the less you know. The recruiters are going to want you to know all of the programming languages. If you go into tech, what would be considered tech, non-degree tech, they're going to want you to know all the programming languages. That's impossible. Nobody knows that. So don't get hooked into that. Figure out what you need to know, what domains you need to be knowledgeable in, what certifications you might need, or what degrees you might need in order to get to your destination. And again, you don't have to be in an engineering job when you come out of the military. Although people are going to assume, why don't you just go? You went into the military, you got this job. Why don't you just go into this other area? Well, look, I tried it. It was interesting. I loved, for me, I loved my time. I loved my years with the Marine Corps. Serving inside Marines, even though I was Navy. I would never give that back. But I was ready for something different. I wanted to pursue different things. I felt like there was something else I could do. And that's what I did. By the way, I do have another career that was after the military, which was personal training. I did get into personal training after that. But that didn't satisfy my intellectual curiosity. I didn't feel like that was enough of a challenge for me. I wanted more. And so I kept pushing, I kept pursuing, I kept investigating. I had a couple, like I said earlier in the video, I had a professor. I actually had another professor after that as well. I had a couple of professors who were very supportive of me moving into mathematics. And it went from there. And that helped, having somebody who, those were professors. Those were not advisors. Those were not college advisors. Those were mathematics professors who were willing to take the time to help me. And so that's what I'm trying to replicate right here. It's like, well, what do you want to do? What are you interested in? Maybe you don't know. Maybe you have to do some exploration, figure out what's out there, do some homework. Maybe you could jot down, hey, I'm interested in this and I'm interested in this. Is there something like that out in industry? Either in tech or in engineering. By the way, I view tech and engineering as being different. Because they're different. They're different animals. They're different beasts. Tech is more, when I view tech as, view it more as IT. And there's nothing wrong with IT. But engineering is a different animal. Before I'm going to wrap up here in a couple of minutes. But before I do that, let's see what else. So I responded to Dom. I said, this is a great question for an answer I can provide from already walking the path. And just what I'm sharing with right here. We did talk about this in the space. He says, or I say, although we had a great conversation in my space about getting into tech, this question lends itself to a response that is more focused on the transition from military to tech. Yes. Yeah. And by the way, I'm not saying you shouldn't talk to your advisor. You should still talk to your advisor. If you have questions, you should put them below. I can help you with the engineering part. Because remember, your advisors are not engineers. They're not mathematicians and they're not scientists. Nobody goes to school. Well, let me take a step back. If you're in a university, let's say an electrical engineering program, your advisor will be probably a grad student who's an electrical engineer. When I was at the university, so let me even take another step back here. So in a community college, your advisors won't be that. If you go to a university, and by the way, I suggest going to a community college first. It's a lot cheaper. Do your 2 years and then move up to a university. But when you get to the university, yes, your advisors will be. I had my advisors were, and initially my advisors were mathematics, and then I did undergraduate thesis, so that changed. So my thesis board ended up becoming a mathematician, economist, and a philosopher. I should have added in an engineer as well, but my mathematics thesis advisor worked out in industry as he was not only a professor, but he did consultation on systems in industry. And so I was exposed to some of those ideas through him as well. The point being is there is a difference between community college advisors and university advisors. I will say this about university advisors. They do not do a good job of explaining all the opportunities you might have from, let's say, pursuing a degree in mathematics, pursuing a degree in engineering. At least not in my experience. It just depends. Let's see. So Dom says, brother, I'd appreciate your wisdom. The info you gave in that space a few nights ago was awesome. Excuse me. Yeah, that was a very productive space. Thought that went really well. So he says, speaking to transition specialists today, there isn't a large focus on military veterans going into tech. Yeah, there isn't. Part of it is they just don't know what opportunities are out there. And it might not be the focus. More in production roles, but that might be because of the location. Yeah, that makes a difference. See, OG Brian says you should follow Brian as well. Following this post, I'm in the same boat. Dom says thanks, OG. So he says you should follow me. Angry Jarhead Marine says w3schools.com. It's free. It is free, but that's a tool. These are tools, valuable tools. Let's see, learn C# first or Python. I would say Python, learn Python. But you're not learning a programming language to learn the programming language. You're learning a programming language because you're teaching yourself computer science principles. Any language you use, you should use it to teach yourself computer science principles, not, you're going to learn the language, that'll come along with it. But you learn the principles of programming, of computer science. Then you can apply that to other languages. It'll be easier to pick up other languages. C says, read computational thinking by Jeanette Wing, blueprint and application you'd like to build and start building, testing it. Yeah. Well, that's the idea of projects. You should start on projects. He says here, reference others' code during the process, Stack Overflow, GitHub, etc. Yes, he's correct. He says he started out as an artist and ended up software engineer in civil division. Long story. That would be an interesting story. He says, I love questions like these by fellow vets. More of us need to get into programming. It's good for the mind and has countless benefits. So I could get into an entire conversation about software engineering and how that term is used and what that actually means. If you're in software engineering and you don't have a degree, I would refer to you as a tech engineer. That's how we do it in engineering. If you don't have a degree, you're a tech. If you have a degree, you're an engineer. That's the difference between being an officer and being enlisted. If you have a degree and you become an engineer, it's like you're a butter bar, and then you move your way up. I used that term early on, where I would refer to myself as a butter bar, and most everyone had no idea what I was talking about. Then I became salty enough. I promoted myself to second lieutenant, or sorry, not second lieutenant, but first lieutenant. And anyway, the techs know a lot. I learn a lot from the techs, and they generally dump on the engineers, and they say that stuff around me because they know I don't get offended. I find it funny. Dominic says, brother, I really appreciate the information. This is epic. I'm hearing Python more and more. Yes, you should learn Python. I use Python. So I'll take a look at that info. Yes, here, what would you say is your biggest challenge learning? Angry Jarhead says, no problem, brother. I'm a naturally right-brained person. Coding is a very left-brain set of disciplines, language. So I had to balance out imagining a function command, right brain, with actually coding, building a solution, left brain. Coding is done in your head. You should do coding on a piece of paper. You should do it on a piece of paper. Design it. It's a very mechanical thing to do. What you write is the result. Can be. See, it says here, there are multiple solutions to any problem. Yes, depends on the design, but yeah, that's another conversation in itself. It says it takes hours of doing the thought reps to come up with the shortest, simplest solution. It says, I can tell you that learning to code is extremely rewarding. It is, absolutely. And the skills you pick up translate in every area of life. Yes. It lends itself to testing. Coding lends itself to testing because in order to write good code, you need to test a lot. So you very much develop a test engineer's mindset. Although I know a lot of devs who do not. They do not do that. They're poor at quality. They're very poor at quality. Matter of fact, most of the devs I've met have been poor at quality. It's just messy work. Sometimes they had a lot of times they cut corners and stuff like that. Probably something you don't want to hear. It says here, it busies the mind and takes up space where invasive thoughts might otherwise take up. Let's see, and let's see here. I'll read this last part. He says, there are multiple, okay, it takes hours. He says, I can tell you that learning to code is extremely rewarding. And the skills you pick up translating into your life. I already read that part, especially for vets. It busies the mind, takes up space, and invasive thoughts might otherwise take up. Yeah, that's what mathematics did that to me. That's what mathematics did to me. Also says, plus it heightens patterns recognition, strengthens faculties of correlative thinking, and expands memory capabilities. Let's see. It says here, which, as I've come to realize in retrospect, were actually skills we used in warfighting during our younger years. We can definitely talk more about it. I'm happy. All right. So he says, yeah, that's good feedback by Angry Jarhead. So there you go. That is my distilled journey from soldier to scientist, or from being a Navy corpsman to being an engineer in industry. And so that's all I got. Let me know. Let me know if I missed any questions or any questions I should have asked. Please feel free to post your comments and questions below. It'd be great to hear from you. I really would like to be able to respond. So please do that. And that's all I got for today. I will see you in the next episode.